I'm ready. Oh, how exciting.
And we are live. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. I don't know why I always want to say Guten Tag. I have no idea even exactly what that means. I think it's German for good day.
Yeah.
My name is Tiffany Hillcook, and I run a spiritual practice called the Healing Hill, which, ironically enough, Miss Aubrey Ray came up with the name of my business when we were hanging out together. I don't know if you remember that or not, but you did. And so I started getting this calling about a year ago to start creating a platform to share my light for others to share theirs. And so today's guest is Aubrey Ray. I know her more as Aubrey Moore. We met while working at an organization that we both ultimately left and started our own businesses. But Aubrey is definitely a soulmate of mine, and who knows where the conversation will go today. But please introduce yourself, Miss Aubrey.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here, Tiff. Yeah, I chose to use Aubrey Ray because that's my name on Facebook. So if anyone's watching
Okay.
and they want to like find me, that's how
Oh,
you'd find me. But
beautiful.
yeah, my name is Aubrey Moore, and we've got some dogs out here who are also wanting to join our conversation. So just if they speak up, that's cool. Um, oh, my introduction. Well, I don't know. The first thing I want to say is just like I'm so proud of you. I know that's not about me, but I really am. I have a lot of pride for being your friend, your best friend, for being your soulmate. And so my introduction is gonna be around you because I mean, like when we first met, it was like finding someone that kind of understood me at a place that was really, really new and like bizarre to me. You know, I'd never been in sales. I'd never, done anything like that. So yeah, I don't know. Um, I'm a Virgo. Uh, you should see my setup out here outside. I have everything
I
that I
can
need.
only imagine because we both live in Western Washington, and it's not freezing, but it's 45 degrees.
Yeah, it's a little chilly. But I was like, I'm at my partner's house and he has like a really nice balcony. So I have my tea, I've got my microphone, I've got my little desk. It's such a Virgo. Um, I'm originally from Kansas and I am a sister of five. I have 10 nieces and nephews. They're all amazing. And I recently just became a best-selling author, which is really cool.
It's fucking
Um,
amazing, dude.
yeah. Yeah, I kinda, like, nonchalantly said that, but I am actually, like that's one of the proudest things I of my life right now.
Yeah, dude. You've published a book.
Yeah.
You came up with an idea, you wrote it, and I haven't read it all. I've read bits and pieces. I took a couple of notes
Mm.
from it as well, to just some talking
Oh,
points. I thought that might be fun.
yeah.
Uh, but what I love about the book, and again, I only read like the beginning of it, is, and by the way, the name of it, do you mind sharing the name of it? It's
It's The Art of Self-Pleasure: An Erotic Guide to Your Sexual Awakening.
Yes. And I don't know how on Kindle to go back to show the cover of it. It's a really beautiful cover.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
it's so gorgeous. And what I really love about the book is that there's a lot of vulnerability
Mm,
from your perspective
yeah.
and sharing. Um, it's not a autobiography, but in a lot of senses, it is.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know? And
Mhm.
a lot of
Mm.
discovery and learning, and just some of the core value words that I wrote down um, was safety,
Oh.
connection, and
Mm.
specifically pleasure. And I
Mm.
just and you have these yummy anecdotal, vignettes of your credentials and life experience is what created it.
Right, exactly. Oh, that was so nice. Thank you. I was just kinda Practicing my receiving.
Yeah, dude. Well, I just love you so much. For
I
everybody,
love you
anybody
too.
listening, I don't know how long I've known you for, but we definitely met probably like going on 10 years, 7, 10 years.
I think it's been 9,
9.
2015. Mm-hmm.
Okay, beautiful. And a story that I would like to share, and we are going to come back to the book, but this is where we're going right
Oh,
now,
yeah.
is for folks that have watched or listened to me more than just today. I experienced in 2020 a spiritual awakening. And as part of that awakening, there was one night in particular where I experienced what is called, I now discern to be called an ego death. There was an aspect of my ego that was trying so desperately to hold on, but it was based in fear and based in not in reality. And the story was that I was crazy. That was the part of my ego. There was this identity, the seed that was planted by my mother, that there was something wrong with me. And that evening, I had a strong compulsion to kill myself. And I had 911 quite literally dialed in the phone. But instead, I phoned a friend. And that friend is Miss Aubrey. And I remember the moment that she brought me back to my body because I was talking about medication and I didn't want to be on medication. And for bipolar. And she goes, Tiffany, we're talking about killing yourself right now. We're not talking about you being bipolar. And I was able to, in that instant, see the tangled web that had been woven by the ego. And what you had encouraged me to do earlier, you were like, let's go outside and let's ground ourselves. And I had felt it was like 6 o'clock at night, but earlier that week, crisis center people had been sent to my house from my mother. And so I was so hyper aware of people watching me and thinking that something was going to be wrong. So we did it together via telephone. And I'll never forget at that moment, I'm sitting on the ground in a blanket. It was November 13th, Friday the 13th. And all of a sudden, these two bunny rabbits hopped out within like 5 feet of me, two bunnies. And I remember I said to Aubrey, we're soulmates. And your response was, I know. And I was like, but no, you don't get it. We are soulmates. Like I felt this deep love that I had never, ever felt before. And you're like, Tiffany, I know. I knew it like the moment we met. And I was like, holy fucking shit. How did you know? Like, clearly your heart was more open, just at that time in order to be able to feel that level of love. But I just have such an immense gratitude for you in my life because you, just by the gift of presence, just by just being there, right? Not saving the day, not just literally the gift of presence, provided such a blanket of safety and grounded me and just made me feel so safe in those moments. And I will be forever, 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 forever grateful to you. And I just love you so dearly.
Oh.
And I know that you know that. I know that you know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that story is a really powerful one.
Yeah.
I'll never forget it in my life either. Yeah. Yeah.
We went to Taco Bell, I remember.
Yeah.
And we went to Taco Bell and I couldn't even speak. I just remember I had felt literally like I ran a marathon. Even more so, I just felt I had my dog with me. I just remember feeling so exhausted, like I had just was in war. And you were just so gentle with me. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember going to Taco Bell, and I'm pretty sure I always remember whatever thing that you would get, whether it was a soft taco or a Crunchwrap Supreme or whatever, you always substituted the meat out for beans. Always. And so I was like, okay, I think I can figure this out. I think I know what to get her, And I'm pretty sure like a few days a year after that, or maybe that same year, when I was going through my crisis, because I left a 7-year relationship, I think it was the same year.
It was the
Um,
exact same year,
Dude, that's bizarre.
within
Uh,
months.
what?
Yeah, because yours was like June, July-ish, right? And mine
Yeah.
was November of 2020. Like
Oh
we
my
both,
gosh, you're right. Oh my
yeah,
gosh. Okay,
yeah.
so a few months prior then, or whatever, um, I had left a 7-year long relationship, which I had learned was pretty emotionally and verbally abusive for most of that time. And it was like one of the like bravest things I've ever felt and most terrifying things I've ever felt. Cause like um for those of you who don't know me, which probably none of you do, um, I'm an empath and I'm a highly sensitive person. And as I grew up, I and I talk about this actually in my book. I learned kind of like attachment, connection was always like with another person. Like it was never really with myself. I didn't learn that type of safety through myself. It was always with somebody else. And so as I grew older, my attachment to others really became pretty severe, I would say. And it got to the point in a lot of my relationships, romantic relationships, and my friendships, where I would feel like I can't live without this person. Like literally, I cannot live without this person. And so that's kind of where I was at in this relationship. And so the fact that I was able to leave thinking that, well, I might die, I might die, even though it sounds like so dramatic now when I think
Oh,
back of it. But like at the moment, that's where I was. So it felt really like terrifying, but also really relieving and freeing at the same time. So when I was going through that, after the day after, I had said, "Hey, we need to break up. This is not going to work out." We were living together, and Tiffany came and picked me up. I remember I stayed at her house for a week, and that same experience with Taco Bell happened because she goes, "I think I know exactly what your order would be," and I'm like, "Tell me." And you literally said exactly what I would want, and it was just like amazing. Soulmates.
yeah. What's so ironic about that experience too is in both instances, I picked you up, and then in the other instance with me, you picked me up, which is
Yeah,
just interesting because that isn't really something that would have ever happened either.
yeah,
Um, yeah. Well, I wonder. I guess we're transitioning a little bit. So whenever I do
yeah.
this, I just get questions from my spirit team, and they're like, "Ask this." So,
Perfect.
so you are a sex and intimacy coach.
Hmm.
That is one of your dimensions of who you are. And I wonder in your meeting with people, I don't know if you work with couples ever or if it's just if just women or what the demographic is, but um, what do you do when you engage with people that are having, like, let's say, dysfunctional relationships, that it's really clear that there's some dysfunction going on, or you're there to serve as a mirror, right? Like it's
Yeah.
their own self-discovery that they're supposed to be uncovering. um, does that trigger anything inside of you when you're meeting with those individuals? Like, walk me through something
Yeah.
like, because I can imagine that would happen.
Oh yeah, totally. Actually, that was what I was going to say. It was, well, the first thing that happens is I recognize within myself how that is similar in my own past relationships, or how like, and I'm not perfect. Sometimes like I'm like triggered and I'm like, "Oh, let's all take a breath together," or something like
Yeah.
that. That's usually like if I'm in a workshop or if I'm working one-on-one with people, um and I say, "Okay, let's take a deep breath." It's not just for them. It's also for me because I'm a human too, and
Yeah.
I get triggered just like everybody else. And so it's nice to take a deep breath, return to the present moment, remember, okay, I'm here to serve this person. Um, so sometimes that does happen. And my job is to be a mirror for them, and my job is to help them discover this is going to sound really corny, but it's to help them discover the answers that they already have within them. Somebody from our old work
Okay.
once, oh no, I said this to somebody at our old work, but one of my old friends from a long time ago said this to me before I was like going into like an interview or something like that. They said the knowledge that you already have, that you need, already exists within you. The strength that you desire already exists within you. The courage that you desire already exists within you. And so it was just a really wonderful way of like reminding myself that, oh, yeah, I already have these things inside of me. And so that's kind of like my mantra that I say to myself when I'm working with other people of like whatever they are seeking externally, because I have been there for most of my life seeking things externally. And eventually that led me into toxic relationships, that led me into um, self hate, I will say, and self deprecation, led me to many forms of depression and overwhelm. It led me to burnout. So, like, you know, external validation can only get you so far in life. And so, and now that and because I'm a pro at it, because I've been doing it for 20 plus years, it's pretty easy to recognize in somebody else now. And so my job really is to help them recognize what they, not just recognize that, but also to like help them get to like, okay, what is the end goal here for you? Like, where do you want to be with your relationship? Because in the last month, I've been chatting with women. So to answer one of your questions too, I work with women mostly. And most of the women I work with are in relationships of some kind. Though I have worked with some select couples, and I have worked with men too. And all three of those things equally are challenging and unique and exciting for me. Um, so in the last month, I've been talking with a lot of women who have said something along the lines of, my husband doesn't give me what I need, or um, I want more of this and I'm not getting it, something along those lines. And so my my process with them has been like, okay, well, what's he specifically not doing or doing? Um, and sometimes it takes a while to figure that out too, especially if you've let it sit for years. Yeah, it can be difficult to then voice, because it's like, well, there's all these things, all these little things that have happened over 5 years or 10 years. And so that can be a really big challenge for women. It was a challenge for myself, because we're taught to like not make waves, we're taught to like just like push through and like go along. And after a while that builds up, and it's like a sneaky buildup, you know? So yeah, it's helping them identify how they feel, like actually how they feel. Like, I feel angry, or I feel frustrated, I feel exhausted, helping them name how they feel. And then after we get that figured out, helping them figure out what they need. So it's like, okay, you feel this way. So what do you need, either from yourself or from him? Like, what do you need? And help them get really specific with it. And yeah, that's like one method. Yeah.
I can imagine that, because this is what I see, at least in when I am working with individuals, is I can imagine the need is actually very simple.
Yeah.
Like,
I
we've
was
got all these,
Yeah, I was in a workshop recently. So by the way, this like identifying feeling and then identifying the need, this is not work that I came up with. It's there's a doctor called Marshall Rosenberg, and he wrote many books, but one of the books he wrote is Nonviolent Communication. So for those watching, if you want to check that out, it's a really great book. And it's a pretty short one too. But it's like these simple points or methods, but they're really difficult to put in practice. I'm still really practicing it quite a bit. So, but I was hosting a workshop last week for this like private women's group, and we did this exercise where they go into like, you know, breakout rooms, and they just practice saying what they want. They just state it out loud. I would like, or I would want blank. And
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of like you can say like stuff that's like global. You could say like, I want world peace, or you could say something really personal.
Yeah.
You could say something that you've never asked for before. You know, so it gives them an opportunity to just kind of play and like notice.
Yeah.
And when we come back in the big group and we share, and not one of them said a material object at all.
I was wondering if that was going to be like, I want that new jacket, or I want that new purse, you know, I want that
Yeah.
new house.
Yeah, not one of them, at least that they shared, right, was I want like a big house or anything. It was I want to feel desired. I want to be listened to. Yeah, stuff like
Is
that.
that a common feeling that women don't feel desired?
Um, well, I think, you know,
Maybe
the
not feeling.
way that they want to feel desired, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure if it's common, to be honest with you, at least through the clients and the women that I've interacted with, you know, which is like a teeny tiny amount compared to all the women in the world. Um, but yeah, like I guess there are ways, just
It's
like
like
there,
love. Like I want to be like
yeah,
the way
exactly.
I had this marker moment for me in 2020 when I realized I was looking at this picture of my little sister when she was like itty bitty. And my sister and I's relationship has always been rocky. And I just remember looking at this picture and having the utmost reverence for her, and realizing in that moment how I loved her whole life the way I wanted to be loved.
Mm,
And it wasn't the way that she wanted to be loved. And
yeah.
that it really was pretty exhausting to be my sister, in the sense that you talked about earlier. So Aubrey and I both identify as Enneagram type 3s, the achiever, workaholics. You know, we've got so many beautiful qualities, but one of them is definitely this subconscious need to be the golden child, to be the best, to be the, you know, however I need you to perceive me, I'll wear the cloak, I'll wear whatever it is.
Chameleon.
Chameleon, yes. And that's part of our gift, though, too. You can put us anywhere. We can talk to anybody. And if we genuinely want to, we are very heartfelt people, but we can get into, you know, workability and using people. And anyways, and so if I'm understanding the desire component, it's almost like I remember in relationships, and I haven't been in one in a while, but I make up rules and new boundaries all
Mm-hmm.
the time when I observe something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I like that. Or, you know what, that will not work for me in a relationship moving
Yeah.
forward. And I would be really clear in the communication if and when that behavior even manifests, versus like, oh, I'm going to just shove it down. But
Yeah.
whenever I would be almost afraid to receive any type of intimacy, because I just connected intimacy with sex.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That if
Mm-hmm.
we start kissing,
Yep.
if we start making out, that I'm going to have sex.
Yeah. Or if he's massaging me, I'm gonna, oh great, I'm gonna have to have sex with him now, or at least give a blowy. Great.
Exactly. Like, how can I get out of this the quickest?
Yeah.
How can I get out of the situation the quickest? And I just know that doesn't have to be the case. That will not be the case with me in my next relationship.
Yeah.
I think you called that one thing that you discussed in the book, which I really loved. And I know that I'm afraid to even speak it, because then like my brain knows it to be true. But you talk about performance anxiety.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And by the way, the cat is so cool. Can I just get a picture of the face?
Oh, yeah. This is number 2.
Oh, number 2. Oh, hi, sweet one. Oh,
We're best pals.
are you? So you have a cat now.
Basically, it's my boyfriend's cat, but it's my cat now.
This is yours too.
Yes.
So can we talk about performance anxiety?
Yes, I would love to talk about performance anxiety.
For me, when I seek the root of it, it comes from a place of, for me, of like people pleasing. And that was this component of my needs are not necessarily as important as yours. or maybe I don't even know what I need in this moment. And so I'm just going to give all my energy to you because it's easier than
Mm.
being slowing down and
Ooh.
saying, like, what do I need in this moment?
Yeah.
Um, and there's also this like rule that I used to have for myself that like having sex means orgasm for the other person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
no matter what, not necessarily me,
Mm-hmm.
but having sex, my job is to have them orgasm.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would you, uh, and I get that coaching is so individual, right? It's so like, it's not necessarily one size fits all, but um, what can you share about performance anxiety and what could be some tools that can help a person in that moment?
Oh yeah. I'm so glad we're talking about this.
Me too.
Um, a lot of what you just said really resonated with me too, of like like the people pleasing aspect and feeling like um it's my job to make sure the other person is having a good experience as if I'm in charge of their experience in any way. um, but I think, and I think on top of that, just how, depending on how you learn about sex, what's your primary way of learning about it? Which one of my primary ways of learning about it uh, was visually through porn when I was like, I don't know, 10 or 13 or something. Um, and in that experience, that is where I learned, oh, so I didn't really at the time put the connection to the word performance, because in the videos I thought they were actually like
Yeah.
feeling a lot of pleasure, and I would just do those things as I grew older. Then I would mimic, I would like moan a lot and be really loud, and I would move my body like on all these crazy ways, um and sometimes it would be nice, and other times it was a performance, and it was very difficult to discern what was the dopamine from the it actually feeling good, and what was dopamine from the people pleasing part of like, oh yeah, they like this, good job, like my inner golden retriever being like, yeah,
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very hard to discern, just
Yeah.
differentiate, I mean. um so, performance anxiety, let me just,
Hmm.
well, typically my first question, not my first question, but my questions when I'm working with, we'll just go with women that are dealing with this, is does the same thing happen when you're by yourself?
Correct. No.
Right.
Yeah. Like I know. Yeah. No. Hmm.
And for some women it does. For some women, they have still have trouble getting there or experiencing orgasm by themselves. And it may be not performance anxiety, but maybe some other type of anxiety, um, maybe something completely different. So that's usually a question that I'll ask, is like, does this happen by yourself, or does this just happen when you're with somebody else? And it's hard to do this because when we're aroused, there are so many things that are happening with our body and our minds. Our nervous systems are going off in all these ways. Our bodies, like physically, is changing. Um, if we are very imaginative, like me, I'm a very imaginative person. You will if definitely see that in the book. All the fantasies that I have come to life. They were so much fun to write about. Um, but if you're a really imaginative person, then maybe you have fantasies going on too. And so there's a lot of like aspects of arousal. It's very complex. And that's just with yourself. Then you add another person, and it's all of their things too. And if you have any type of sensitivity towards anyone, then you've got to have some really great tools in your tool belt to tune into your own body when you're with another body. And so it's very difficult to kind of understand, like, this is the exact cause of my performance anxiety, but if it's at all possible, in a sexual experience with another person, um, right afterwards, I would say, writing down some notes. I know that doesn't sound very sexy, but as soon as you can afterwards, right after your aftercare or after your snuggles, um, writing down, like, what were some thoughts that happened during that time? What were some of the experiences that you felt in your body? Did you feel tightness anywhere in your body? And maybe even, and I would actually say before, like, going into, it's kind of like an experiment, right? You're like, okay, I have a theory that I have some anxiety and I want to know what it feels like, how I want to know how to identify it. So then you're going into this sexual experience, and then afterwards you're taking notes of your observations. So it's very much like super sexy and academic, um, which to me actually is pretty sexy. Uh, so, um, but I would say if you are going to be doing an experiment like that, which is just one way of probably thousands of ways to understand your performance anxiety, but if that's one way that you choose to, then having a conversation with your partner beforehand of like, hey, I've been struggling with this and I'd like to understand it more. So, I'm going to be paying attention to this. I'm going to be trying to enjoy our time together, but this is going to be something that I want to a little bit paying attention to. Um, and then you can kind of write your observations. And with women that happen to that by themselves as well, then it's a little bit easier because you don't have another body you have to worry about, another person that you have to worry about at all, and you can just do it with yourself, and you can even stop in the middle and write notes and things like that. But that that may not jive well with your partner, so you really have to talk through it to see what's best for you both, right?
That reminds me of a Seinfeld episode where George ends up dating this gal where he's able to eat sandwiches in bed while having sex. And so he's like, he finds this like ultimate trifecta, and like his head would just pop out from the sheets, and he's eating this like triple meat salami. Anyways, so
That is so awesome.
it's so good. What I really love about that as well, and what you just ignited in me, is how often, for at least myself in particular, I've never, how do I want to say this? Everything we do can be rooted in intention.
Yeah.
And so how often that I went into these sexual experiences with the intention of a job, really, that was it, that this is my job. Like there was some desire clearly on my end, but even before engaging, being really intentional about the purpose of the engagement and what I'm seeking out of the connection or the intimacy that I'm going to be having with this person, versus like, oh, here I go again.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And, some other things I'm thinking of, I'm just going back through my like memory files and through my own performance anxiety, sexual performance anxiety. And one of my biggest ones for me comes in the form of feeling like I'm taking too long. I don't know if that resonates with anybody of your viewers, but yeah, like feeling like I'm taking way too long to reach orgasm, or I'm taking way too long to become wet, or whatever it is. It's taking too long. And so something that has really helped me in my solo self-pleasure practice and with my partner is giving myself no time limit. Absolutely no time limit, because there is like this imaginary countdown happening in my mind sometimes that I'm not aware of, that causes this anxiety. And then it's like, oh, I have to get to this place, again, imaginary, get to this place in a certain amount of time, or else my partner's going to get bored, or else I'm going to be too needy, all these different stories. And so when I literally out loud, when I'm by myself in my own self-pleasure practices in the book, because it's a big pleasure experiment, I gave myself 4 hours with every single date. And I kind of go into a little bit of why of that too. But yeah, I gave myself 4 hours because, I did this poll on the Facebook. And I asked people, how long does it take for you to get ready for a date, to go on a date, and to come back and feel settled after the date? Like how, like add up all the time.
Yeah.
And the average was 4 hours. And so, yeah, you know, like getting
Long
ready.
fucking time. I'm thinking like that's like,
Yeah. Well, if you go
yeah,
out to dinner, maybe you have to drive there and you're spending an
100%.
hour at dinner, or if you're going to a movie, right? So
Yep.
it's just like a lot of time that adds up. And and that's cool. I love long dates.
Yeah.
Um and so it just started raining. How
Are you
magical.
covered?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, how magical. Um so that's why I gave myself 4 hours. I was like, okay, if I'm going to take myself on a date, then I'm going to give myself the exact amount of time that I would give to somebody else. And so when I'm with myself, it kind of feels like limitless time, you know, like 4 hours is a really long time. I'm not worried about taking so long in that amount of time.
Yeah.
And when I'm with my partner, and if the performance anxiety comes to light, and even if it happens like in the middle, you know, like maybe we're in the middle and I'm getting frustrated and I can feel myself, like, you know, when you're like really pushing, you're trying
Yeah.
so hard.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not going to
Yeah.
help you with your orgasm.
No,
Uh,
not enough.
but you think it will at the time. I do.
Yeah.
I do. That's for sure. But even in the middle, you can take a pause. Say, hey, can we take a pause for a moment, and just lay down for a little bit together. You could just lay there for a while, or maybe you could take some breaths together. Maybe you could get up, walk to the bathroom, get some water or something. You know, just take a break from the moment that you're in. And I do suggest kind of maybe moving in some way, because you want to kind of get out of that little energy a little bit.
Yeah.
And and then you come back and you say, hey, will you tell me out loud that I can take as long as I need?
Give me
Would you be
permission.
comfortable doing that? Yeah, exactly. You're giving yourself permission, and then your partner's also giving you permission, because in our minds, sometimes the story is my partner's going to get bored. He's going to lose interest, right? And so sometimes hearing that out loud can just really melt that pressure away. And I know that's helped me before. So before sex, sometimes, like before we even go into it, like, hey, can we take as long as we need? Absolutely. Or during, if
Well,
it's
hearing that too
too
as
questionable.
a partner, right? Like,
Yeah,
I would be like, abso-fucking-lutely. We can take
right.
as long, it's like we have these perceived ideas around what the ask is too big. And then you hear
Totally.
it, and it's like, I would love to provide that for you.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. That's why a lot of my work, honestly, like in workshops and stuff,
yeah.
when people come to my workshops, they probably think that we're gonna like be talking about sex positions and like all this juicy stuff. And you know, I'm down to answer questions about that for sure. But most of the time, my like agenda for the workshops is practicing receiving and asking for what you want, because that is like the hardest thing for a lot of us, um, particularly women. We have a hard time receiving. And so that's like the basis of a lot of my workshops, is like giving them tools and like explaining the tools and then having them practice the tools. Yeah.
Which is ironic because when you, in the spirituality realm, with everything spiritual, that everyone, it consists of masculine and feminine energy, and the
Yeah.
feminine energy is the receiving side.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I think there's been this confusion for some individuals. I don't want to even, maybe we'll dare I say, an imbalance of this masculine and feminine energy, where
Totally.
we don't even necessarily know what it feels like to fully be in our divine feminine. Like,
Oh,
there's,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah, that really resonates, because that was something last year. I mean, I'm still in that this year too, but last year it was really apparent.
yeah,
And you know, actually, I think, and I think I mentioned this in the book too, but I think I credit my self pleasure dates to something that, at the beginning of last year, so January 2023, I received my first download from Spirit. I've always heard people say that phrase, like, "Oh, it was downloaded," and I'm like, "Oh, what is that? What does that mean? What is that like?" And then I experienced it on December 31st, 2022,
wow,
and it was basically, um, it came in the form of a course. Later I turned it into a course, but it came in the form of kind of like this workbook for me. again, just creating academic exercises for myself. I love it. Um, and it was here's like the 6 avenues that you can incorporate to help connect you to your divine feminine. And because I too have been one of my past teachers, the president of my sex coaching school, her name is Dr. Patty Britton. She called it work operating from the neck up. So using our head and logic and everything, which is really beautiful in some aspects of life. I mean, you know, talk think about us building our businesses. Like without that masculine drive and ambition and logic, it would be really difficult to do.
Yep. Yep.
More difficult than it already is, I should say.
It probably wouldn't
Um,
manifest,
yeah, yeah. But if that's the only type of energy that you're putting into your life and into your work, we'll say our work, um, then it feels very disconnected from my from like my actual path a little bit. And so January 2023, I started my feminine ritual, which was, yeah, that was amazing. And it was so wonderful. And now, like, when I have women, like, fast forward, I have like a program now that women can come into. It's called Awaken Your Desire. And that's like the first part of the program. I actually put them through my Find Your Feminine Again course, which is this thing that I went through, to find my own feminine. And so, yeah, I think it's funny because it would be like, sometimes it was 30 minutes in the morning, sometimes it was 2 hours. It really just like depended on my choice and my desire, because that's what I was connecting to. And yeah, so I sometimes I wonder, I'm like, I wonder if like that like then evolved into my self pleasure dates. And I'm like, I wonder what the next evolution of those are ever gonna be.
Well, even, I don't know if you notice, well, I do this, but you do this too, that sometimes, so one of my gifts is being able to discern what other people's gifts are. And so I'm like, oh, I know what they're doing. But there are times when you close your eyes and you kind of turn your head.
Mm.
That's channeling for me. It's like I'm seeking this information. I'm waiting. Oh, there it is. I almost think of it as like a silk thread. But that's how you access information sometimes from your.
Oh, thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, it's when you're like, yeah, and I close my eyes too. Not everybody does, but it's almost like it gets me even more focused or connected.
Yeah, it's very helpful because there's so much stimulation happening with my eyes. Like there's so many things to look at and like process right now. So when I shut them down, you're right. It's just it kind of like it takes that whole sense away, which is really helpful in focusing. Yeah. Yeah.
So with your practice, what are some of the ways in which women or people can work with you? And by the way, Aubrey's website, her socials are all going to be below in the description box. So if you're watching this at a later date, you can access this information. But I just can tell you how needed your services are. I can just like,
thank you.
Even just having a witness.
Yeah.
Like that's, I mean, it's so important. I see it every day. So many people that are hurting and they just don't feel seen.
Yeah.
Male or female, doesn't matter the gender. They just feel forgotten or So walk me through, who are you seeking? What's the demographic? And then what kind of services do you offer?
Yeah. So, sorry, there's a hummingbird right there.
Yeah.
Do you see that every too?
They're so noisy too.
Oh yeah, I can like hear them now when I go on walks, and then will stop and I can start to point them out. Actually, me and my partner are totally bird watchers now, and I love it.
I am an ornithologist junkie myself. I can love birds. Yes,
it's awesome. Yeah. Okay. The question was, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. It just, I want to make sure that
people can,
the type of people who like, who are you calling in and how can you help?
So a lot of my content and what I share online and the workshops I put together, like all the free stuff that I put out there, because it's important, as you said, this work is important. It's important to be in connection with our desires and with our needs, and put language to them. So I feel joyful and happy to provide information free to people.
Yeah.
Stuff like what we're doing right now, right? Like people don't have to buy this YouTube video, they can just go and look at it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really valuable. So a lot of that type of stuff is geared towards women and partners, people who are partnered. Doesn't matter what type of partnership you're in. And the different ways that women have worked with me. So there's like 3 off the top of my head that I'm thinking of. One is my 4-month Awaken Your Desire program. And that program is really for bold women who are ready to explore their bodies, who are ready to explore their genitals and build a relationship with them. And is a really good way to connect with your feminine, I would say, your divine feminine within, and your own desire. So that way, let's say you're partnered, and you enter in that program, you can start to communicate the things that you're discovering about yourself with your partner. Because it's one thing to discover them, and then it's another thing to then communicate what you've discovered, right?
Yeah.
And typically when you do find out things, it is easier to communicate because then right, what you're trying to say. So that's one way. 4-month program, Awaken Your Desire. Another way is maybe the program isn't the best fit for you, or maybe you have something specific that you want to work through. Like maybe you have you can orgasm by yourself, but you have a hard time orgasming with your partner for some reason, or vice versa. Maybe if it's something really specific, then you can just do private coaching with me. I encourage people, and I think I typically have always had individuals do 4 sessions to start with, because it always takes more than one, right? The first one, we're really getting to know each other and your sexual background. So that's another way, is private coaching, which I also really enjoy. And in my program, FYI, I'm going to go back really fast. The program is mostly one-on-one. There's like a few group calls in there, but it's mostly one-on-one too. I really like the intimacy of being one-on-one with a person. That's why I work with like select couples, because it's a lot to hold space for 2 people and their relationship all in one space. And especially if one person's not really as committed as the other, and so you have to like really figure all that out. So yeah, I really enjoy being one-on-one with people. And so both in my program and my private coaching has a lot of one-on-one with me. And then the third way that people can work with me, check out what I do, and get some tools or strategies for themselves is I do retreats every now and again. And so some of them I host myself. So I have one in February coming up. It's called Unleash Your Authentic Pleasure. And I'm doing it with a colleague of mine and a friend of mine. She's a sexual trauma healing specialist. And so it's really like, it's going to be deep. It's going to be a powerful one. We actually, just this weekend, her and I both just like went through all of our materials that we're going to be going through, like separately, but we can see each other's work because we have like a shared folder. And I'm just like, oh my God, I just saw this that you creating space for, or holding space for pain and healing. This looks so awesome. And so like I'm just so excited for all of this, not all of this like knowledge that we've experienced in our lives, and to bring it to women in like a really intense 3 days, you know. So that's one way, that's one retreat, and then there's a couple other retreats that I'm like a guest in as well. So yeah, there's lots of different ways.
Would those be on your website or on your
Yeah.
Facebook? Or, okay.
Yep. Yeah. The retreat I just mentioned is on my website, and the second one is also, it's at the end of, or excuse me, it's in mid-May, and that one's also on my website too. It's in Breckenridge, Colorado. So that one's like in person, which will be really fun.
Oh
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
goodness.
I'm super excited about that. So
I just love, so part of my purpose is for everyone to find their passion, for everyone to find what ignites their fire,
yeah.
and to just follow joy, follow pleasure, follow, happiness, calm, because that is the compass in life.
Totally.
It's nothing external. It's follow the heart, and it will tell you everything you need to know. And the universe, God, whatever you believe, will take care of the rest. I don't know if maybe you remember this, but there's when we worked together years ago, you talked about when you retired wanting to become a sex coach.
Yeah. Sex ed teacher. Yes.
Was. And what I love so much, and I just want to notate for people, is that, and I'm reading this book called Sacred Contracts, and what it literally talks about is all these people in your life are essentially give you all the nuggets to what you're going to be doing in your life if you're aware enough to observe them. And it's like, that was a nugget for yourself that maybe you knew, but that you actualized significantly quicker. You're obviously not retired. And I want to just express how much courage that takes. Because we worked for a company that was really, I have the utmost gratitude for the organization, but it wasn't a healthy place to be.
And it was really lucrative. So it like was,
it was like heroin to a type 3. It was like, you're giving me the job title, I get this money, I got a house, it's like, I look cool, I get to eat all these fancy restaurants, and I'm
totally
catering and taking out all these people in these classes. It was like heroin for me. And then I realized one day, I was like, I'm empty. I'm on empty. And so I'm wondering for you, we had different exit strategies. I just wasn't able to go as gracefully. That's how I've always said it. I'm wondering, like, for individuals, so we're switching gears a little bit, but for individuals that are in a spot where they're maybe not happy, or you've got some sort of feeling that like something isn't quite right, or they have a longing, like what motivated, where did you find the strength to leave a company like that? There's so much uncertainty. So, I mean, financially, all of these things.
Right.
But clearly you had a something inside of you that burned brighter and deeper.
Yeah.
And so, like, what kind of words would you give to somebody that wants to take a leap, or maybe is in a place where they don't want to be, but doesn't even know what the future looks like? How would you connect with them?
Good question. Well, first, how you describe your leaving, how I describe your leaving is you went out with a bang. That's how I describe it.
Like, fuck you. Yeah, I went out with a bang. I fucking did, dude.
Yeah, that's how I love it how we have different words for it in our minds. That's great.
That's good.
Well, it's interesting because I think my my way of what are the words I want to say? Hold on.
Take your time.
I'm going to use the example of my relationship instead of the work, because that's what really sparked it. Like I
Okay.
had left that 7-year abusive relationship first, which I kind of described to people as feeling like I took a lifted veil from my face, and then I could see like very clearly, and it was like, whoa, like
Yeah.
I gotta change some things, you know. So the thing that saved me, I will say, was spending time with just myself. Towards the end of my relationship, like say the last 2 to 3 years, was really difficult. And there were times when so my first kind of indication, right? If you're, and maybe you're already in a place where you know you want to leave, but if you're unsure, my indication of like, hey, it's time to do something different, or it's time to move on, was I would fantasize about leaving him. I would fantasize about him doing something so bad that I would have to leave him.
Yeah.
You know, so those were my fantasies.
Yeah.
Those were my dreams at that time. And so that was like kind of a hint indication of like what I was wanting, but wasn't really admitting to myself that I wanted, because it was safe in my mind, you know, it was safer there. And so if you're not sure like what you want, then maybe turn to what you're fantasizing about, and that can give you some signals.
That's beautiful.
Um, It may not be as literal as mine was, right? But they will have a message in there for you. All our dreams do. I know you believe that, Tiffany.
Oh, I know it. Yeah.
Yep. Um, and if you do know, if you're like, yes, I know that I need to leave this current situation and whatever it is, the way that helped me discern if that was really what I wanted, because if you were anything like me, you um, might have some issues trusting yourself in your own decisions. And at that point in my life, I was having some issues with that. Like, I don't know if this is actually what I really want. What if this is something made up, you know? So I gave myself, and I lived with my partner at this time too. We lived in a house together. Thankfully, we had multiple rooms. We had like our bedroom, and then we each had our own office. But even if not, even if you have a bedroom and a bathroom, you know, you can do this with a bathroom. I said, hey, I'm going to spend the next 4 weeks in some solitude. And I know that might seem really strange for you, and I want to hear how it makes you feel, but I need you to knock before you come into the room that I'm in, because I just need to do some thinking. I need to spend some time alone. Like, and I feel like, you know, we live together. I love living with another person. I like the company, but sometimes I need some space just to myself. And so and this was just, you know, very specific to my situation. It may look different for you, whoever's watching, but I moved into our second bedroom, and I wrote every single day about what I was experiencing and what I felt. I still have the journals. Actually, when I was writing my book, I went back through them, and I wrote down what I felt. I wrote down what I was experiencing with myself, what I was experiencing with my partner. You know, so let's say you're in a job and not in a relation. Well, a job is a relationship, but let's say you're in a job situation, then it could look like, you know, going and taking your lunch by yourself and not with your coworkers, and writing down what you've experienced that day so far and how you felt in your job so far. And then when you get home from work, doing the same thing, you know. So that's what that could maybe look like for a job. um yeah, and when I started doing that, I said 4 weeks. I'd like 4 weeks, and in 3 weeks I told him I can't do this anymore, and I left. And so just in 3 weeks time, I learned and I discovered and came to the conclusion that this relationship wasn't going to work for me anymore, and I was able to leave it. And very shortly after that, um, I hired a coach, actually. I hired a coach right after that to help me move on and to help me understand and process that, because all my friends, not all my friends, but a lot of my friends had been through my partner. And so it felt very lonely to leave him. I was like, I don't know where to go. I don't know who to talk to, outside of you, Tiffany, really. So I hired a coach who originally we were going to use for both of us, as
I
our
remember
couples. Yeah, yeah. She was recommended to me by one of my friends.
together, right?
We were originally, yeah, going to use her to meet together in our relationship to help us through it, and then between when we learned of her name and between when I met with her solo, I'd broken up. We'd broken up. But I still wanted to meet with her, and I'm so glad I did. Her name's Wendy Lynn. If anyone's interested, she's an amazing woman. She's like a okay, cool. It's Lynne, um, and
And
she was an amazing coach.
like in Redmond or something.
She's in Redmond. Yeah, yeah. Um, and I worked with her for 2 years, and whenever you are experiencing a big adjustment like that, whether it's with your job or with a partner or something else, like you're experiencing a loss, you're experiencing grief, and it's really, really important to process that grief and not just like shove it away and move to the next thing. Or fill it with a bunch of my one of the things I filled the void with was like a bunch of stuff, because I was making pretty good money. So it's like, oh, I'm going to buy myself a new car. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to decorate my house, because I never got to do any of that stuff before. And that was great. But again, it wasn't really sustainable, right? Having a coach to really help me understand my grief, my loss, what had gotten me really into that situation in the first place. Like there's a lot of shame associated with like understanding that, like, wow, I literally let somebody verbally abuse me for years. I let somebody emotionally use me for how long? Like there's a lot of shame that I experienced. And so having another person who's like kind of like your cheerleader, like they're like in your corner to help you understand that and to process that and not like have you go into this like shame spiral, um, is really, really helpful. Typically, um, not typically, uh, with her, the thing that helped me move through and actually choose to start a business was she helped me realize an integral belief that I had been operating from for basically my whole life. And it's
Yeah.
very difficult to understand what you believe, like step outside of yourself,
Oh,
observe your beliefs, and then choose which ones you don't want to believe in. Like that's a very difficult thing to do by yourself.
yeah.
you
Yeah.
like most of the time you can't even figure out what you believe in because you believe in it so much. That's how
Yeah.
your thoughts are being made. So it was so helpful to have somebody like be a mirror. That's what we talked about earlier, being a mirror, and show me this is what you currently believe in, or this is one of your beliefs that's been likely attributing to you entering into toxic relationships, both romantic and professional toxic relationships. And so once I kind of like understood that, then once you have awareness, once I had awareness, I could make a choice. I could make a different choice of like, oh, I can choose to believe in something else. Now that is still in process, people. I just want to let you know that like you can just, you can choose to believe in something else. And maybe for some people it's just like, yep, now I believe in this and this is fine. But I'm still unlearning 28 years of
Program.
believing in, yeah, of programming. So it does take time to unlearn or to re to what's the how do I what's the phrase I'm looking for here, um when you pull the roots out of something and then you replace it with another plant. I feel like there's a phrase for that, but that's basically what I'm
Rose.
uprooting.
Okay, I was like, it's
That's
not
the word. Uprooting. Yes. It takes some time to uproot something fully. It's kind of like I think of my belief that I'm not enough, or that,
Worthless.
that's the main one. It's kind of like in the Pacific Northwest, we have a lot of like blackberry bushes, and if you don't get to the root of the blackberry bush, it'll just come back. It just comes back
With
so
a
quickly,
vengeance, dude.
with
So quick.
vengeance.
They
Yes.
can grow like bamboo, like not quite like bamboo, but I'm talking
Yeah.
feet a day. And if you get into a blackberry bush,
Crazy. Yeah.
they are the way that they have been created. They will fuck you up. Yeah,
Yeah. So that's my blackberry bush. My belief of that I'm not enough, or that I'm worthless. That's my blackberry bush that have been uprooting for the last 4 or 5 years, that have been uprooting and slowly trying to replace it with another plant that is better that serves me better. So it takes time.
The way that you describe your relationship is quite, and the way that you felt, specifically, how could I allow someone to do this to me?
Yeah.
I had that exact same experience, but with the company we worked at.
Yeah.
I remember I wrote I was meeting with the VP of HR, and I think it was a 15-minute phone call, and I had been there almost a decade. And so I decided I was going to write a letter of resignation. 15 minutes was not enough.
Yeah.
And I knew at that time too, the call wasn't for me. The call was not about my feelings. It was about buttoning up and, getting things tight on their end. And I remember this friend of mine, her name's Mel, and she still works for the company today. She was like a rock. She guided me through the whole experience. I'm not kidding. I was multiple times a day. And she's like, fuck that. If this is happening, like she was just able, I'd given so much of my power to this company. I didn't know that I could say no to certain things. But I remember I wrote this letter of resignation, and the first sentence, and I'm feeling emotion, I just couldn't stop crying.
Yeah.
And the pain was coming from this woman this woman that is me, but that I had allowed to be made so small.
Yeah.
So itty bitty, so self-sacrificing, so fake.
Yeah.
And so I hated myself. Like when I say that to people, I truly did not I didn't know what self-love was. I had to build that. And so it's interesting that two different entities, two different, one a company, one a person, but the same type of feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I'm saying, like, toxic, if you are operating from a belief that doesn't really serve you, but you're not aware that it doesn't serve you, then you're going to keep running into a lot of the same situations, just with a different jacket,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's what you're going to attract.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, everything's energy, right? And so if we're, it's like how does the drug addict always find drugs?
Yeah.
An energy to it. They know, and it's like, how
Yes.
does the, let's say the criminal always find someone to, steal from? Like there's an energy, like, oh, that's an easy target. They can tell by the way you're fucking walking. Really though, like we're always
yes, that's exactly why I get scammed on the internet all the time, because they know by the way that I'm interacting with them, like, oh yeah, this person's gonna be an easy one to scam.
They can though. It's so bizarre.
Yeah. So yeah,
So
if you're in a position of wanting to leave something, going back to the original question, spending time alone to discover like why or what it is that you're wanting to do, or what's the next step possibly for you, right? Spending some time alone and hiring a coach. That's what I did. And it was really, really helpful.
And trusting yourself. Like it sounds like you started reconnecting with, and we worked in a very masculine, I would say I am very comfortable in the masculine, that energy. I like, even just saying it, I'm like, like I can, like, I'm like, you want me to go where, compete? I'm like, I can, so I'm like,
oh yeah, I would tell people at that company, like people above us, I'm like, oh, I'm an excellent doer, like I'm an excellent operator, like give me something to do, I'll do it. Oh,
like
God.
grease the wheels.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean it's balanced. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's just interesting. What I noticed for myself is that I didn't trust a lot of the feelings that I had. I
Yeah.
had these alarm bells going off in the form of
Mm-hmm.
my body,
Mm-hmm.
or really pain, but also just like people treating me poorly. Like literally, I'm observing this
Mm-hmm.
person is treating me poorly, marginalizing me or what have you. But I would go, they didn't mean it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't see
Or
that.
this is for the good of your growth. This is going to help you get to where you want to go.
They
Yeah.
have my best interest at heart. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. 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 And that inner trust is like, that is still something that I, am working through too, because it definitely hit me pretty hard after I left that romantic relationship. Like my inner trust like was
Yeah.
crumbled. I was like, well, I thought this person was like the one. I thought I was going to be with this guy for the rest of my life. Like, what
Yeah.
is going on? And then it happened again after I left my job too. So it was kind of like this like double whammy. And my again, there are so many avenues, right? So I don't want people to hear that there's only one avenue to this, but the avenue that worked best for me when it comes to rebuilding my inner trust outside of having help, like with a coach, was diving into my sexuality. That's why I chose this path. Because in order to be a sex coach, a sex and intimacy coach, you have to kind of like live what you're talking through. Like I have to explore my own sexuality. I have to really dig deep to figure out what's with my own performance anxiety, like we talked about earlier. Like it's a profession that requires me to do a lot of work on myself, inner work on myself, a lot of inquiry with myself, which is fucking why I chose it, because I love doing that stuff. I love doing that stuff.
Dude, same. Like when I think about why spirituality in general gets a bad rap is that we've got these folks that get all this information coming in and say it's from the neck up, but they're
Hmm.
not grounded in the experience
Yeah.
of being human. And so they come across as, I call them, untethered or unattached.
Mm,
And so
yeah.
it's kind of like, you make me feel weird. I don't like the way that I feel when I'm in your presence, right? Like there's an uncertainty, there's an unstableness.
Mm.
And so for me, I had a lot of healing to do as well.
Uh-huh.
And before I could start saying, yes, I am your healer, and yes, I can help you,
Right.
I had a lot of crying and forgiveness and
Yeah.
reorganizing. I reorganized a lot. You called them beliefs. I call them agreements. These
Mm.
agreements
Yeah. Oh, I
that,
love that. Yeah.
yeah, like I agree to do this, and this is the way that So these agreements that I had made, and I just like these contracts that I said, yeah, I'll do that, and then I'm like, I'm rewriting these. I don't like
Yeah.
the way that these were written.
Yeah.
I didn't even write them. I was like a year old when I said, okay, that's how moms are, or that's how,
Hmm.
like,
Yeah. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I like calling them agreements. That's great.
Agreements, yeah, agreements,
Yeah.
contracts.
Because it makes it feel more, to me, it gives the feeling of this can be edited, this can be changed. Beliefs sometimes feel like so rooted and like permanent. Yeah, I like that a lot. Thank you for giving me that new
Oh
language.
yeah. Well, one of
Mm,
my favorite books that was at the beginning of the precipice of my awakening was The Four Agreements, and I don't know if you've read that book.
I haven't, but I know of it.
It's just so simple, but just I even read it when I'm like feeling a little ungrounded. Like
Mm,
there's my personality, like I don't want anybody to think I got it all figured out, because there's times I get in my head and then all of a sudden I'm like, I can feel anxiety coming. What? Because I used to live at a constant state of anxiety. I'm not kidding. Like it was almost
yeah.
jumping. And I was on
Yeah.
so much Adderall and just drinking heavily, like smoking
Dude.
weed. Literally, my day was like upper, 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 downer, 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 and rinse and repeat, upper, upper, upper. Like first thing I would do was take an Adderall every morning. Before even like that was my water. But so when I start to feel anxious now, it's like, all right, I have these tools or resources like going on a walk, but or reading a book as well that will help
Yeah,
me in my experience.
absolutely. Yeah.
We've got about 15 minutes left. How do I want to finish this? Well, I would like to connect this to to the expression. Nope. How do I want to say this? Sexuality and intimacy. It's a dimension of our existence, right? There's so many dimensions
Mm,
of our existence, and
mhm.
how do you notice when someone's connection with themselves romantically, sexually, their ability to express their needs is blocked? How will that manifest in their life in other pockets?
Other pockets like outside of the bedroom, you mean?
Yeah. Or just how would that, like, somebody that just doesn't ever allow themselves to receive or
Hmm.
have a blockage energetically here, how will that affect your life?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things that are coming to the surface.
Yeah.
One is our creativity. Our sexual energy is our creative energy.
Mm,
The way that I describe that to people who are like, "What? What do you mean?" Is if you think about the sexual act between a man and a woman, we'll say a man and a woman, it creates life. Literally, a human being is created from our sexual energy. Like the most powerful creativity you could think of is creating a human, at least from my understanding and my perspective.
yeah.
So our sexual energy is directly tied to our creative energy and our creativity. So if you,
Wow.
right?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I just heard this. Like, okay, please continue.
No,
Like,
would you like to?
I just have spoken with people, women particularly. I don't necessarily have the depth of relationship with men, but when they've gone, and I didn't ask if they've had sex with themselves, but like actually I know that there's a few people in my life that haven't had any sexual relation with themselves or another
Hmm.
for a
Hmm.
decade.
Yeah, yeah. And think of, and if you're not really, if that's the case, right? If you're not having any sexual experience with yourself,
Yeah.
your ability to understand your own body and what your body likes sexually is going to be hindered probably quite a bit, which means your partnered sex is probably not going to be as great as it could be. In
Yeah.
fact, it might be pretty miserable. It might be something that is a chore or that you're going through the motions of, right? So you're not really engaging in any sexual energy or creative energy in any, at least from that dimension, right? The sexual dimension. And so if you're feeling like, thank you for pausing me there, by the way, because I feel like I think about that and I write about it and I say it so much that I forget that maybe that it's the first
Like,
time for someone hearing that. Yeah.
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 It's
Thank you for pausing me.
yeah.
So if you're feeling a lack of creativity, a lack
Mm,
of passion, a lack of understanding of your own wants,
yeah.
if you're just like, I don't know what I want to do, I don't know in my next job what I want to do, those are some examples, then that might be an indication to me. Then I would want to inquire. I would want to inquire about uh, your relationship with sexuality, particularly self pleasure.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one way it can manifest. That has
Wow.
nothing to do with uh, the act of sex,
Yeah.
really, at all, but
Yeah.
more so the creativity and passion you have to live your life in the way that you're choosing to live your life.
Yeah.
So it's directly tied to that.
Wow. Because one of my some you called it a download. I call them knowings, but some more
Mm,
information that's been coming lately. And her name is Dolores Cannon, and she has since passed, but she was a hypnotherapist that really started to connect with collective consciousness. And
mm,
why do we like past lives and future lives? And one
mhm,
thing that she talks about through the Earth School, which apparently is the hardest school, it's the last school that we can go through as a soul. And
mm,
when you go through the Earth School, people in the spirit world think you're really brave and courageous because the thing about Earth School is you don't get out of it until you're done. And so it can take 2,000 lifetimes or it can take 200 lifetimes to
mm,
figure out what all the rules are. Again, I don't even know what they all are, but she said the primary one that we must master is how to manipulate energy.
mm,
How you manipulate energy is through creating.
mm,
And so
mm,
it's like, even though I don't think about sex and intimacy as a form of creation, but it's absolutely is.
Yeah, I didn't either, you know. And when I started diving into my own sexuality, which, if you're kind of wondering, like, what does she mean by that? Like diving into her own sexuality. That means basically like exploring my self pleasure, like doing, and I'm partnered, right? I've been with a partner for a long time, but that means that I explore my sexuality in the depths of it by myself. And then I bring my learnings and my discovery to our relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And what I just heard there too was, how do I want to articulate this or package it? You're putting the responsibility on yourself.
Yes.
Versus, here I am, make this shit happen.
Make me orgasm.
Really, like why?
Yeah.
This is your problem.
It is not anyone else's responsibility or to make you orgasm or to make you feel pleasure. Pleasure is an internal experience that only you can control. I mean, if you think about like okay, there's an example that it just slipped my mind, so it's okay, I'll skip it.
Cool. Well, it'll come back if it's important. That's what I always say.
Exactly.
Bring it back if it's important. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's see. But yeah, typically when I am trying to understand a person's level of, or their relationship with pleasure, I'll say, a really great indicator is their self-pleasure practice. Because if you only give yourself 10 minutes of time, pleasure, or if you rush through it, then what makes you think somebody else is going to give you any more time than that? You know? If you don't respect your own desires, what makes you think somebody else is going to? And that's not just in sexual sense, right? Like if you have a desire to, I don't know, get through a line quickly or something, you know, like it could be any desire.
For me, I notice in line, some people stand too close to me.
Yeah, like right here.
Yeah, and I'm like, dude, I literally will look, and I'm not kidding. I'll put my arm out, and I say, I can. I don't know you. You're getting way too close to me. That's just like a simple. It's like, funny. It's like, if you don't know what your own wants and needs are, and how could you possibly expect somebody else to? Honor, right? Give value to them and honor them. Like the one thing you talked about earlier is and I think you even prefaced, you're like, I'm a human. I'm still like learning this. Is there are times where I'm like, fuck, like I'll have a new experience. Maybe I'm getting something done. I've got a contractor coming, or there's a new relationship. And I realized in the relationship that I gave away too much of my power. I said yes to something that I didn't want to say yes to.
Totally.
Whatever it is. And so, but now I'm so much quicker. I'm like, damn, I would not do it the same way. And so I learned from that experience versus like holding on to that energy, not speaking what isn't working for me. Because, this is what I've learned is 2 minutes of uncomfortability of me saying, I don't want to do that thing, whatever it is way better than 2 weeks of me holding on to it.
Totally. Oh my gosh, that was so well said. Yes. And that's what we do sexually too. Like if you are experiencing a sexual experience that is subpar or dissatisfactory or painful or uncomfortable, and you just endure those things, then you're keeping yourself in that kind of low frequency energy, and it's even harder to come out of that.
Because it's almost like you establish the habit or something, or well, and everything's energy. So if you start collecting energy of a certain type, it's going to be harder.
You're going to attract more of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I think, yeah, just the creativity and the passion thing, that's like a big one for me. In my book, I talk about the things that I actually manifested in real life, that I created in real life from my self-pleasure practices, like finding myself a business coach, creating a book, creating two books actually. And so like stuff like that. Like I created things that brought me income. Like I think that's pretty cool.
That's from
It's pretty
nothing,
sweet. Yeah, from
from nothing,
just
from
touching
your
myself.
ideas. Right. So
Yeah.
that's like a beautiful balance. April Angel, she was the first person that I had on one of these Sundays. And
Mm-hmm.
why I chose
I watched
Sundays is,
that episode.
oh, did you know?
Yeah.
I love the idea of reclaiming what church means. I love
Mm,
reclaiming the idea of church. And church, I think by definition, is just a gathering of people to create community.
mm-hmm.
Um, but she talked about feminine and masculine energy, and the feminine being through the heart space and the receiving of the information. And then the masculine is doing something with it.
Yeah,
But to
absolutely.
really see where there's a disconnect too. Like, let's say you're doing, but without any clear intention. Well, then we might want to get more in touch with that feminine side. And if you've got all these ideas, but you're not allowing them to actually express physically
Yeah.
in the formation, then we've got to disconnect to the masculine energy.
That's
So
really,
it's,
really beautiful. Yes. I
you
think
know,
it's in maybe date number, it's either date number 2 or number 3 in the book, where I talk about my masculine and feminine energy coming out, and expressing itself in different ways through the form of one of my fantasies. And it's so cool to be able to um, tap into both parts of, the masculine and feminine parts of you, at the same time, so that you are practicing receiving and you're also giving yourself the thing that you're receiving. It's kind of trippy.
no, well, it's like being love, right? Like you can
Hmm.
receive, give love at the same
Hmm.
time. Like, couldn't you do that with any other feeling
Yeah.
or frequency?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really special. It really is special.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's amazing. I'm just so, as we're wrapping this up, I'm just so, I love you so dearly. Like, I really do. I don't even really have the words to fully express the gratitude that I have for you in my life.
Yeah.
And we haven't even talked on the phone for months, but it doesn't even matter.
Doesn't matter.
It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It's like I can come over, and that's the beauty too. I have freedom in this relationship. I feel very free.
Yes, me too. I don't feel obligated in any way to like text you back at a certain time or to like see you a certain amount of times per month or something, like the agreements that we have written for ourselves are really freeing.
But if I want to see you too, I'll say, "Hey, I want to come see you," and you'll
Yeah.
be like, "Oh, cool," and I'll come to you. Like, and you come to me too. Like sometimes we just
Yes,
crave each other's energy, but it's just
totally.
really cool. And again, I don't have the words to express my gratitude. And also, Aubrey has a mailing list, and she writes poems. She will keep you
Mm,
updated. I mean, she does live events as well. And I just, whenever they come through, I just, what you're creating, I am inspired by it as well, just
mm,
because what people don't know is where we were and what we went through is that there were a lot of choices that you had to make.
yeah.
And there's choices around, like, people judging you, and like all of the uncertainty even around, like, is what I'm doing right for me? But you
Yeah.
just kept following it, and it's just inspiring just to be
Mm.
around. So I just want you to know that, like, sincerely from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you. Thanks, Tiff. I freaking love talking to you. It's funny. Before we hopped on here, and when I am meeting with a stranger, let's say they're interviewing me, I feel myself get more nervous,
Yeah.
because I'm like, oh, I don't know what kind of questions they're gonna ask me. I don't know what their energy is gonna be like. And so coming on here with you just felt like, meeting up with an old friend,
Yeah.
and it just felt really, really, felt like really relieving. Yeah, really nice. And
That's
I
what
too have zero words to describe my feelings for you and our relationship, but I'm just very happy to be in your life, and I'm very happy that you're in mine.
Yeah. Amen to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And whether it's in this dimension or another one, you know?
Right.
So, yeah. All right. If anybody watching this has some questions for Aubrey, put them in the notes below, even after that you've watched this, because we're going to be signing off here in about 20 seconds. But we can follow and connect those questions to Aubrey. You can go to her website. She has her socials below. Sign up for her mailing list. Like she said, she offers free events as well.
Yep.
She's just a really cool person. And so I can guarantee if you feel some sort of attraction with her, that's part of the law of attraction, honor it and see where that
Follow
goes.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, follow it. Yeah, those are the breadcrumbs. Those are the things you're asking for that they may not come in the box that you realize. You're like, but that's not the present that I was thinking. It's like, well, this is how the universe is providing it for you. So,
Yeah.
all right, folks. Thank you so much. Signing off.